Okay, thanks again, everybody, for showing up to this business owner briefing. Today, we're going to talk about the UCube succession strategy framework from Crossing the Goal Partners. So let me get the slideshow started here, and let me make sure I'm sharing my screen. Let's see here. Share screen. There we go. Okay, so you should be seeing this first slide here, UCube succession strategy framework. So, I kind of make a distinction between succession strategy and succession planning because of a great quote I heard from a gentleman named John Jantz. You really need to define your strategy before you can start implementing your plan, right? Your tactics are your plan to execute your strategy. So we talk about strategy before tactics, right? So the first thing you need to do is define the strategy, right? What kind of succession strategy do you want to follow? So we'll talk about a few of those today, real quickly, and then once you've got a strategy, then we can go into plan and defining what the tactics are, what tasks you need to do to implement that strategy, and then we'll talk. Then you go into implementation. So that's why I call this the strategy framework as opposed to the succession planning framework. So why we're here today, so AKA the problem. Most business owners have a very difficult time answering this one important question, right? Who would run your business tomorrow if something were to happen to you today? So lots of business owners are busy fighting fires and fighting the fire right in front of them today, and they fail to look down the road, 5, 10, 20 years, and it could even be tomorrow, right? I mean, we don't know what the future holds for us, so really need to be prepared today for what could happen tomorrow. So, you've all heard the phrase, right? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So one of the things I ask business owners when I first meet them is this very question, right? Who would run your business tomorrow if something happened to you today? So if you were to get hit by a bus, who would be able to run the business for you tomorrow, right? And it's not always you, just the owner. So what happens if something happens to your spouse, to a loved one, to a family member, to your children, or to a parent, and you can't show up to the office every day, right? You want to be by their bedside. You want to be at the hospital, supporting them in every way you can. So you got to really make sure that, if you can't show up to the office every day, if you can't run the business on a day-to-day basis, then there's somebody there that can run the operations for you. So that's really what we talk about in terms of succession planning and strategies. So some statistics here. Actually, Rick from Mass Mutual, this is one of the statistics I pulled up. Only 8% of owners actually have completed the process of developing a written succession plan. So documenting your succession plan is 92% of the people haven't done that. Only 8% of people have actually successfully documented a succession plan. So you'll see in the next slide here, one of my intentions for today is to really help you get into that 8% and really drive that 8% number up, right? So if we can get more business owners to document their succession plan and communicate that succession plan out to their team, to their other stakeholders, then we're already one step forward, right? We're in a better place than we were yesterday. So only 8% have completed the plan. 7% of businesses, let's see. Let me admit whoever this is. Okay, it looks like Tony's coming in now. Let me get back into this here. So 70% of businesses fail first from founder to first generation transition, right? So 70% of businesses, when the founder wants to transition to the business to a family member, to their children, 70% of those businesses fail that transition, first generational transition. And that number only goes up as we go to second and third generation transitions, right? And that's after all the statistics we've heard about the businesses, startups failing. 50% of startups fail within the first 5 years, right? Most businesses are out of business within 10 years. So even after you've successfully made it past the first 5, 10 years, your business could still fail during a generational transition. So these are some of the things that we want to address as part of creating succession plan, succession strategy, right? So 80% of businesses are never sold. So even when you've got good plans, if you haven't selected the right strategy, implemented the right plan, you could have 20% of businesses successfully sell, right? The 80% of them still, because they haven't picked the right strategy and executed the right plan or implemented the right plan, 80% of those businesses still can never sell. So really it's about creating a plan and having a healthy business of value, something you can transition, something that is of value you can transition to a family member or sell to a third party. So this last bullet here, most business owners believe in their business. They want the business to continue supporting their family, staff, community, and customers. So that's a statement I make just because all the business owners I speak to, they tell me they never want to leave their business. So if they never want to leave their business, that means they really believe in their business, right? They want the business to go on for eternity. But we all know that you as a person will never go on for eternity. So you need to be able to make sure your business is ready to pass down to someone in your sphere of influence, right? A family member, maybe you bring somebody in to run the business for you, maybe you sell the business to a third party, but you really want that business to continue for your family, for your employees, right? I mean, your employees rely on this job to live their lives, and your community relies on the business that you've created because, maybe your business is supporting the local Pop Warner football team, right? Or high school yearbook, right? I know at my high school, at the end of every year when we had yearbooks, at the back of the yearbook were always ads from local businesses. So those businesses helped mitigate some of the cost of that yearbook. So, lots of local businesses support the communities in many ways, right? So your family, your staff, your community, and your customers, right? So your customers come to you for a reason. They enjoy doing business with you and your business. So making sure your business continues on for your customers is always a good thing. So that's kind of why we're here today. So let me tell you a little about myself. So I consider myself a business coach, specifically for family-owned service-based businesses. And the thing that makes me different is that I prioritize value creation over revenue generation. So what if you're on social media at all, you'll and probably get it in emails, especially if you're a business owner. Most business coaches are really talking about generating more leads. How do we generate more sales, stuff like that. So they're really revenue focused. Revenue is only one portion of creating a valuable business. So there are actually 8 key components to creating a business of value. So I really focus on all 8, not just the one revenue generation. So, and my quote here is: measures of successful business is not the revenue generates, but the value it creates. So when I say the value it creates, I mean not only the value of the business itself, but the value it creates, again, for your family, for your customers, for your community, for your neighbors, all those people. So creating value is really the key success measure of a healthy business, of a successful business. So our agenda today, I plan this to be about an hour. I've got time at the end for Q&A, so we'll hopefully have time for that. So the agenda for today is really the importance of succession planning. We've talked a little bit about that already, but I've got some notes here that I'll go into a little more detail. We're going to talk a little bit about my framework, UCube succession strategy framework, and you'll learn a little why I call it the UCube succession strategy. We'll talk a little a bit about applying the framework. We'll do the Q&A, and then I'll do a wrap up, and then how I can support you. So I've got a slide on something that I'm offering to everybody on the call here. So that's how I can support you. And then we'll talk about other resources available to you. So my intention for today is, again, like I mentioned earlier, is to have you in the 8% of business owners that have documented a succession plan, setting you up to be among the 30% of business owners who successfully transition company to the next generation. So that's really the intention of this. So back to what I mentioned earlier, right? Lots of people don't know what they don't know. So hopefully this will actually enlighten you to the things that you don't know. So really educational. And then after you're educated, then you can take action on things, right? Sometimes you need help with taking action. And there are people like me and other people out in the world in this whole succession exit planning kind of community that are really great assets to help you. So just really, things to think about. So let's dive right in, right? So the importance of succession planning is really around continuity, leadership continuity. So leadership continuity means that you need to be confident the right person is ready for you when they're called upon, right? So what does the right person really mean? So the right person has the right skills, the right knowledge, the right ability. They have the wisdom, the culture and values that your business possesses. They possess those also. And they have the willingness. So one of the key things that I've talked about in other discussions about this topic is the willingness, right? So lots of business owners think, okay, I'm going to sell my business. I'm going to pass my business down to a family member. But what they fail to do is talk to those family members. Do you really want this business? So I actually had a conversation with a woman that owns she owns a graphic design and promotional branding company. So I asked her, what specifically do you want to do with your business? Or, what's your succession plan? She's like, oh, I'm just going to pass it down to my son. I'm like, have you spoke to your son about that? And she's like, no, I haven't yet. So I said, before we go any further, you need to have a conversation with your son, right? Is that the right strategy for you and your family? Because what often happens is, your children, they've, perhaps started their own lives. They've gone to school, they're married, they've got a career, they've maybe moved across the country. So they don't want to give up the job that they've got. They don't, their family does not necessarily want to move back to wherever you are, wherever your business is located. So really the willingness is a key component, probably one of the first things to think about when talking about family succession planning. And then if you're talking about bringing somebody in externally from the outside, culture and values are a really big thing also, right? So making sure that that person is a good fit. So it's like hiring any employee to your business. Are they a good fit for your company, right? I mean, do they possess the same values? Are they going to maintain the culture the company has? So that's one of the first important issues. Another one here is employee development and knowledge transfer. So what we're really talking about here is the right person needs to know how to continue your success, right? So you've built this business over, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And you've done specific things that have made your business successful. So what are those things, right? So whoever steps in as your successor really needs to understand what you've done in the past to make you successful so they can continue and improve upon those things to continue to make the business successful into the future. So we talked about things like systems and processes. And actually goes back to the book I mentioned earlier, right? So this idea that they present in Atomic Habits is that, I wrote it down here so I get it right. So James Clear talks about, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, right? So that's on page 27 of the book. So it's really about employee development and knowledge transfer is really making sure you've got the right systems and processes in place so that your business can continue to grow and thrive even after you've passed it on to the next generation. So, and how do we educate them? How do we make sure that we help develop those employees? One of the things that I talk to business owners about is shadowing. So making sure that you're bringing your successor to you at client meetings, having them do kind of shadowing you, like helping you with daily operations, learning how you do things, the way you do things. So it's one thing to see a process on paper, but to actually work with you as the owner to kind of make sure that they get the feel for how things are being done. That's another big piece of employee knowledge transfer, right? Shadowing. And one of the things I also talk about is, you can test your succession plan by stepping away from the business, right? Maybe you take a 90-day or 30-day vacation. Maybe you take a 6-month sabbatical and put your successor in charge. Kind of figure out, okay, how are they going to do if I'm not here, right? So don't bring your computer with you on vacation. Don't bring your laptop. Don't check your email. Just let your successor run the business for a month or so. How do things operate? And it doesn't have to be a month. Maybe it's just a week to start with. How does the business operate while you're not there, right? Are they able to continue operations successfully? And then when you get back, you can do an assessment, do a deep dive. Okay, what systems broke down while I was away? What additional knowledge transfer do I need to give to my successor so that they can operate the business without me? So that's a good way to test. And actually, I did a presentation not so long ago called the vacation test for an organization called Enterprise Bank. So the vacation test is just making sure your business is ready to run without you by just taking short breaks from your business and having a successor in place to run the business while you're gone. So that's the second important element. So the third important element is really risk management. So really what we want to do is mitigate risk. We want to ensure there's stability of operations. We want to minimize customer, vendor, and employee anxiety. So like any change in any organization or in any person's life, it's always stressful, right? I mean, there's always anxiety about the change. So making sure, you've got a plan and you're communicating that plan, and, people know what's happening and they're part of the solution, that really helps mitigate a lot of this risk and anxiety the business might have. In addition, there could be, financial component to this risk mitigation also. If you have money, if you need to go to a bank for money, or if you've got bank loans and stuff like that, that could be, there could be risk if you can't present to them, how's your business going to operate if something happens to you. So making sure that, your suppliers, your banks, they're all aware of, the fact that, hey, this business will continue to operate without me. That really help, that you're showing them that you're mitigating any potential risk in the future. And that actually has an impact on the value of your business in the long run too. So, and then long-term vision is the fourth key element, fourth important element. Really what we want to do is that, ensure that your succession strategy is supporting your long-term vision and objectives of your business. It's supporting the culture of your business. And one of the other things that I think about is, you have different strategies for different parts, different cycles in your business. So, making sure you're communicating that strategy out to your other advisors. So if you have a CPA, most CPAs, I know we've got one on the call here. Most CPAs, when they're looking at the strategy that they've got that they want to implement for your business, if you're not communicating with your CPA, they're going to go to the default strategy of tax minimization, right? So they're going to do everything they can to make sure you pay the lowest tax bill you can at the end of the year. But what you need to really do is communicate with your CPA and your financial advisors and say, hey, listen, these are my long-term visions for the company. I plan on leaving. I'm putting together the succession strategy. We really need to address what's the tax implications on a year-to-year basis and on a transitional basis. So how can we what can we do today to minimize taxes for the long term, for a long-term transition, right? So, but yeah, so keeping your advisors in the loop on your vision, long-term visions, is always important. So those are some of the key important elements of why you need a succession plan and succession strategy. So some of the common challenges I've heard from business owners is, who should be my successor, right? How do I identify the right person to be my successor? The emotional attachment to the business. So lots of business owners, you've heard this before, right? Business owners talk about their business as their baby. They've built this business from day one. They've spent, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, really nurturing this business, growing this business. They have a close connection with a lot of their customers, a lot of their employees. So they're really emotionally tied to the business. And that can be a real problem in terms of, succession planning. When you want to step away, how do you maintain those relationships? What is it about those relationships that might make stepping away more difficult? So really being aware of emotional challenges to the business as you build your succession plan, and maybe talking to the right people. Actually, I was speaking to a business broker just the other day. On his team, he actually has a psychiatrist that he works with business owners that come in to help business owners as they're getting ready to sell their business because of these very emotional issues within the business, right? The owner has to the business. Kind of related to emotional is the family dynamics and relationships. So, if you own a family business, how does the family interact? What kind of challenges might there be from one family member to another? Especially if you're doing a family transition, does the oldest get the business? How do you decide which of your children might be your successor, and how does that make the rest of the children feel? Is there animosity between them? Do they harbor guilt or or are they jealous? Are they going to maybe undermine the succession because they're upset? So really making relationships identified and really thought through if you're doing a family transition. Resistance to change. We talked a little bit about this before. Any change in an organization really creates anxiety for not only your employees, but family transition. You got family members that are going to be resistant to change. You need to help address this. Really need to talk. You need to be talking to people, right? So not only do you need to document your succession plan, or you need to be able to communicate your plans and your thoughts and ideas onto other key stakeholders in the business. You don't necessarily need to communicate your plans to everybody in the business, but the key people in your business, right? So maybe your leadership team, maybe your family members, spouse, your advisors, those kinds of people, right? So making sure you communicate that out, making sure that the key people, key stakeholders are part of the plan. So when you're developing your succession plan, bringing a team together of people, right? So bringing together a team of advisors, family members, key stakeholders in your business. So if you've got a leadership team or a board of directors, want to have them as part of the process, that really helps overcome some of this resistance to change, because they're part of the solution, right? So you're making them part of the solution, part of this design. Traditions versus new world order, right? So, there are a lot of, this goes to the cultural thing, right? I mean, lots of businesses have traditions embedded in their company. They've done things certain way from year to year, right? They take maybe, Christmas through New Year's off. So, so that's maybe a tradition that you've got in the business. But if you bring somebody new in, how are they going to operate the business, right? So what traditions are they going to continue, and how does that make your employees feel? So really being cognizant of what your traditions are and how those might be impacted by a transition. Lack of understanding, planning, execution, right? So like I mentioned earlier, lots of people don't understand succession planning. You don't know what you don't know. So coming to this business owner briefing is a good first step. And there are other places you can learn more about this. I've got some of that written down here, so I'll share those with you. So planning, we talked about, only 8% have an actual documented plan. So a big challenge is, what's the first thing is, what's my strategy? What do I need to do to implement this strategy? So there are lots of people that can help you with that. And then executing on that strategy, right? So making sure that you do the things that, once you define what your tasks are, making sure you're following through on those, completing those. Are you documenting your processes? Are you setting up time for your identified successor to shadow you? Are you beginning interviews to bring in a new leadership team? Have you connected with a business broker? Have you spoke to your CPA? Have you spoke to your financial advisor to get ready for a business sale, depending on what strategy you follow, right? So those are some challenges you need to be aware of, making sure that you understand what you're doing, planning for it, and then executing to that plan. Legal and financial complexities. So like I mentioned earlier, there are lots of tax implications, whether it's selling the business, you got capital gains taxes, or if you're passing the business down to family members. I'm not a tax guy, I'm not a financial guy, but passing the business down to family members, there are tax implications there. Legal implications to the structure of your business. Are you a C corp, S corp, and how does that affect your taxation during a transition? So things to talk about, things to think about. So bringing on an M&A attorney or having a CPA that's well versed in business transitions and exit planning is always important. So time, lead time and implementation time, people often underestimate this, right? So, really what I talk about with business owners, they should start thinking about their succession at the time they when they're starting their business, right? So when I'm talking to entrepreneurs during the startup phase, I tell them in their business plan, they should include a section on succession planning, right? So how is that business founder going to exit the business? What plans do they have? Those plans might change, but being able to show that you've got a plan that you've thought it through as you develop your business plan makes it much more credible and professional if you're looking for external investors, if you're looking for financial help from the outside. So making sure that you start early. I mean, and if you didn't do it, most entrepreneurs fail to put that into their business plan. But starting as early as you can, right? So at a minimum, what I recommend people do is start, if you're going to sell your business, you need at least 3 to 5 years lead time. A buyer is going to look at your financial performance and your operations over the past 3 to 5 years. And they're going to use that as a basis for the valuation that they give you on the business. So how much they're going to pay you for the business. So making sure that you're really working in those 3 to 5 years ahead of time to actually sell the business. So that's all around lead time, and then so the implementation time. So, you need 3 to 5 years to actually start the process, and implementation time. You really need time to execute your succession strategy, your succession plan. So once you've got a strategy, you start it today. It's going to take you, maybe a year to find a successor, or 6 months to find a successor, or even if somebody's in your business today or a family member is willing and able to be your successor, it's still going to take 6 months to 12 months to actually get them up to speed. So making sure they understand the processes and systems in your business to ensure its continued success. And the last challenge is just we all face an unpredictable future, right? I mean, like I mentioned, the very first question, right? If something were to happen to you today, who would run your business tomorrow, right? So we don't know what's going to happen to us tomorrow. So really need to have a plan today for a potential catastrophe tomorrow. Something happens to you, something happens to your business partner, something happens to your family member, your spouse, or, so just unpredictable future. Make sure you've got a plan now. So those are some common challenges I come across. So I mentioned at the outset, talked a little about strategy first. So really I define 3 phases in this overall succession strategy. So we start with phase 1 is defining the strategy. So is your strategy going to be a family transition, employee transition? So you're going to have transition the business off to an employee member. Are you going to bring in somebody from the outside? Are you going to hire a new CEO, a new COO to run the business? Or are you just going to sell the business outright? Or are you going to sell 100% of the business? Or are you going to recapitalize the business, right? You could sell a minority stake, you could sell a majority stake, or you could sell the whole business, right? So these are just kind of 4 high-level strategies you might want to follow, and each one has a different set of tasks, a different timeline, a different team you might need. So the first step is really defining your strategy, and then the second phase is really what's your plan. Once we define the strategy, so we want to do a family transition. So so the first task we need to do is we need to evaluate each person in your family that could be a potential successor. What are their skills? Do they match up with the skills that you have and that they would need to run the business? Do they have the willingness? And then we need once we've identified a potential candidate, then we need to start, putting together an implementation team and timeline. Educational tasks. What training do they need, and on what timeline? And if you're doing a family transition, who do you need to be part of that team, that transition team, right? Do you need somebody else? Do you need your financial advisor? Do you need your CPA to help educate this successor on how the business financials are run? And again, if you're selling the business, your team might include a business broker. That timeline to actually sell the business could be, what you have a time that you need to get the business ready for sale. Kind of like if you're selling a house, you first need to stage the house, and then there's the whole process of selling the house. So same thing for business, right? So you need to get the business ready to sell, and then once it's ready to sell, then you actually need to list it, put it on the market to sell. And then so there's a timeline for staging the house or getting the business ready to sell, and there's a timeline for actually selling the house or selling the business, right? And that actually sales process, after you've gotten ready to sell the business, once it's on the market, selling the business could be 12 to 18 months, right? So there could be another year and a half to your timeline. So things you need to consider, right? And those tasks for selling the business might be different than passing it to an employee or a family member. So once we've defined a strategy or defined a strategy, designed a plan, and then we implement that plan, right? So it's really about project management, like I mentioned earlier, communications, making sure you've communicated your plans and your ideas to and your progress of your plan to your key stakeholders, your leadership team, family members. Transparency goes with that communication, and then monitor and review, right? So we want to monitor the progress of your plan. Are you staying according to your timeline? Are you on track? Or you're falling behind in areas? Did you maybe miss an area? Do we need to go back and revisit something? Or do we need to go all the way back to revisiting the strategy, right? So maybe a family member that you had identified, they end up getting a job and moving to Hawaii, right? So they're off the list, right? So now we need to decide, is family strategy still the right strategy? So that's all about monitoring and reviewing. Reviewing the plan, even after you've got a plan implemented, you still want to review it. Is that still the right decision? Maybe every year check that plan, make sure it's still on track, make sure it's still the right plan for your business. So once you've got a plan, then you can make reviews and changes. But until you've got a plan, you're kind of winging it. So, and again, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So those are the phases, but within the actual succession strategy, this is where we come to the U cubed, right? So it's a three-dimensional approach to your succession strategy. We talk about your future, your business, and your finances. So your future is, what do you want to do after you leave the business? What are the things that are pushing you out of business? What are the things pulling you out of the business? So push factors are things like, I have burnout. I don't like this job anymore. I don't like the business anymore. I don't like waking up in the morning. So those are things, you don't like about the business that are pushing you out of the business versus what is pulling you, right? The pull factors are things that you enjoy doing. You want to spend more time with family. Maybe you want to start another business. What I find is in speaking with business owners is they really enjoy the process of starting the business. And then once it gets, to steady state, running the business, day-to-day operations, that's not as exciting to them. So maybe the pull factor is, the push factor is I'm bored, and the pull factor is, hey, I want to start a new business. So that's really about, maybe your future is just retirement, right? Maybe you want to play golf, maybe you want to travel the world, spend more family time traveling. So really defining your future, can your future self fill up the void that your business will create, right? I mean, you're now spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week in the business. How are you going to replace those 40, 50, 60 hours a week in the future, right? Are you going to be able to play 50 hours of golf a week? Is that going to keep you satisfied? Is that going to keep you energized the same way running the business did? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. If not, let's dig deeper, right? So what's your future look like? Once we've defined the things that you're looking forward to in the future, then we decide, okay, look at your business, right? So the first question is related to U1 in the future is, are you ready to leave your business? U2 is really, the second question is your business ready for you to leave? So do you have a healthy business? Healthy business is one that's operating well, it's functioning, it's generating positive cash flow, positive revenue, you've got revenue growth, your clients and customers are happy, they're coming back to you. Your business, even if you're doing a family transition, you want to make sure you're passing a healthy business down to a family member. And it's even more important if you're selling the business, right? So somebody that's buying your business, they're buying an asset, right? They don't want to buy your job. They don't want to work the same 60 hours a week that you did. Because it was your baby, you maybe put up with working 60 hours a week because, hey, this is my child. I really want to make sure I develop it correctly. So you kind of bite the bullet. You say, okay, I'll do 60 hours a week. But somebody buying your business or even passing it down to a family member, they don't want that job, right? They don't want the job of working 60 hours a week. They want an asset that they can, that's an investment for them that they're going to get an ROI out of, right? So U2 is really making sure your business is healthy. So during U1, we have what I call the personal readiness assessment. So we do an assessment on what you want to do in the future. And in U2, we do a business health assessment. So how healthy is your business? And then U3 is all about your finances, right? So let me take a quick drink, sorry. Does your current financial picture support the future you want to have, right? And if not, what's the gap, and can we fill the gap with the value of your business, right? So can we, if there's $1 million gap in the money you need to live the future that you want to live, can we sell your business for $1 million to fill that gap, right? Or maybe you need $100,000 a year. How are we going to replace that $100,000 a year? So we take a look at your finances. So we have what I call here a freedom score assessment. And this is really where I would start to bring in your team. So we would bring in your CPA, your financial advisor. And if you don't have those people as part of your team, my network, I've got those kind of people in my network, so I can bring them into our conversations, really helping you decide what you want to do going forward. So this is really the concept of the U-Cube succession strategy framework, right? You, your business, and your finances. So, that's kind of the U-Cube. You can think of a cube. So now we're going to get, I guess, we'll talk a little about U1. So again, your future, some questions you probably want to ask yourself, just kind of general questions. You don't have to ask them here. You don't have to answer them here, but just maybe think about them after this session. How old are you going to be in 5 years, 10 years from now, right? So how old will you be, right? Where are you going to be living? How old will your kids be, right, in 5 or 10 years? What do you want to be doing in 5 or 10 years, right? Where was your last vacation? Is there a history of family illness? So these are all things to kind of consider. Time is not going to stop. So, what do you want to do for you? What do you want your future to look like in 5 or 10 years, right? How old are you going to be? What can you do at that age, right? Are you really going to climb Mount Everest in 10 years? Probably not. Mariah and Monina might be different, but us other folks here might be, I think we're a little older. So 10 years from now, even 5 years from now, I'm not climbing Mount Everest. But just kind of, think about the future. This exercise here is really to help you think about, what's going to be happening in the future. What and where was your last vacation? Thinking about, the last good time you had. Where do you want to go next? Did you enjoy your vacation? How did you feel when you left the business? And, how did you feel when you got back? Is there a history of family illness in your business? This is, again, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But, like in my family, there's a history of heart problems, right? So some of you may have heard this already. The way I got into this business, doing what I'm doing today, is my father owned his own business, and he had suffered a heart attack and realized that, after that first heart attack, he realized, what, I've got to make some changes in my life. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with my business. And he was able to successfully sell his business to his management team, which was one of the strategies that he thought through. So he sold his business for enough money to his management team so that when he invested that money, his financial picture was strong enough that when he passed away, he had a second heart attack and died. So when he passed away, that money was invested wisely enough so that my mother doesn't have to worry about money again. She lives in the same house, doesn't have to worry about going to work, getting a job. So she's taken care of, right? So, but knowing that there's family illness in my business, knowing there's family history of illness in my life, that makes me a little more cognizant of, making plans for my business in the future, right? So just ask yourselves these questions, push-pull factors we talked about. And then I mentioned earlier, right? We complete the personal readiness assessment, and then we schedule a review of readiness session. So we did the assessment, then we get together one-on-one and talk about that assessment. And I've actually had a few of you, I think, I've had those conversations with already. The point of this whole one is to establish what your life is going to look like in the future, define the future role you want to play in your business. Looks like we just had somebody drop and come back in. Hold on a second. Okay, welcome back. All right, so that's U1, your future, and then U2 is your business. So we talked a little bit about that, right? Conduct an initial assessment of business health. So there are 8 exercises to building a strong, healthy business. So at the outset of this conversation, I mentioned to you that my priority is business value creation over revenue generation, because revenue generation is only one component of a healthy business. So I focus on all 8, right? So there are 7 other areas of your business that will help make it healthy, right? So it's what kind of revenue model do you have? How loyal are your customers? Are they referring you to people? Are they promoting your business? What's your cash flow look like? What are you doing to manage your money? So those are just examples of a few other things that are outside financial performance, right? So how does your business shape up? Review internal company strengths and work weaknesses. So who are the strong people and what are the great things about your business, and where do you have weaknesses and blind spots in your business? Identify external opportunities and threats to the business. So what's the future look like externally, right? What do the markets look like? What's the economy look like? What's your industry look like? Where are there opportunities to leverage, things in the future? What threats might there be in the economy or in your industry to your business? So essentially, we talk about doing a SWOT analysis here, and then we look at current projects and future forecasts. What projects do you have going on in your business? What future things do you have going on that you plan to do that are really going to help improve your business? So the point of U2 is to really understand the current state of affairs the successor will be stepping into. Are there things that we can plan to make? Are there areas where we can make improvement? And getting an estimated current range of value, right? So lots of business owners don't even know what the value of their business might be, right? So as part of this healthy business assessment, we put together a current range. We do an estimated range of value based upon your current performance, these 8 key drivers of company value, the 8 exercises that make a healthy business. So we can put together an estimated range of value for your business. And if you think about your other investments, right, you probably, I know myself, I go to Zillow maybe probably once a month, at least every time I get their emails. They're saying, hey, you know what, something happened in your neighborhood, right? So I'll go to Zillow, I'll check what they estimate the value of my home is. So just keeping up to date on, what the value of my assets are. So your business is an asset, right? So you should know, at least on an annual basis, what's the estimated value of your business. So this is one of the things we talk about in U2, your business. And then U3, your finances. We enlist a financial advisor to join the team. So I talked about this earlier. What's your current financial position? What are your current financial needs? Establish your freedom score. So this is my last assessment, the third assessment that we take. So we really look at, what is your current financial picture? Based upon the life that you said you want to live in U1, where is there a gap, or how much of a gap is there financially, and how are we going to fill that gap, right? So working with your financial advisor, are there different investment strategies we can take to fill that gap, or does the value of your business fill that gap? If we were to sell the business, or even if you were to stay on as part of the business, what kind of paycheck might you need to take from that business, as kind of like being on the board of directors. So taking a look at your finances is U3, and the point here is to establish your current financial position. Can your current financial position fund the future desire, right? Identify gaps, determine strategies to fill those gaps. Does your value of your business have an opportunity to fill the gap? Consider succession options. So at the end here, right, this is where we talk about, what strategy do you want to, follow? Do you want to follow a family transition? Do you want to pass the business down to employees? Do you want to sell it to a management team, or do you just want to do like an ESOP, employee stock ownership plan? Do you want to put the employees in charge? Do you want to do an external hire, right? Do you want to hire from the outside a new CEO or new COO to run the business? Or do you want to just sell the business outright? Do you want to just step away completely 100%? Do you want to do a minority recapitalization, majority recapitalization, so you still own a portion of the business? And then who is the right person to sell it to, right? Do you want to sell it to, just another individual that might be able to, carry on the same traditions, values that you had in your business? Or do you want to sell to private equity, which are really just looking at the financials? They might not care as much about your employees. They're all about the bottom line. So taking a look at, who you would want to sell to if that was a strategy you wanted to follow. So the next phase here we talked about was designing your plan. So once we've picked a strategy, then we can start to design your plan, right? So that designing your plan is about gathering the team, documenting the plan, putting together a project schedule, what needs to be done, what should, when it should be done, and who needs to do it, right? So it's really about creating a project plan of things that need to happen in your business to get it ready for that transition, for your succession, right? So even if you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, you can plan for it, right? So that's phase 2. And then, like I said earlier, phase 3 is implementing this plan. So let's get to work, executing according to the plan, keeping the organization involved and updated. So this is, again, working through that change management, right? People are afraid of change, keeping them, making sure they're part of the plan during the designing the plan. When you're building out your plan here, when you're designing your plan, including the right people on your team and making sure you're communicating with them. And then when you're implementing the plan, keeping them up to date on, hey, this is what we're doing. We made progress here. This is great. We need to make a shift here. We need to bring on these new resources, stuff like that. Communicating, reviewing progress, annual review of strategy and plan, right? So I mentioned this earlier, right? So things might change in your organization. They might change in the environment, the economy, the industry. So do we need to make some changes to that plan, or do we need to maybe even shift strategies, right? Do we need to go back to phase 1 and relook at the strategies we need to have, right? So does your financial picture change? What's going on that might need to require change? So I recommend it, at least an annual review of that strategy and plan, right? It's a living document. So really that's kind of the extent of my presentation here, my briefing. So I'm going to stop sharing. I just want to, now is our, oops, let me stop sharing. I've got to figure out how to stop sharing here. Am I still sharing? Can you guys see me?
There is no more sharing.
Okay, good. I must have hit it. I hope it just stopped.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right. So I'll just go around the room, open it up. Anybody have any questions on what we talked about? I know I went through a lot of material, and if not, I've got a few questions
I do.
Go ahead.
I got a question.
Sure. Go ahead, Brett.
So, yeah. So let's say I want to sell my business, and I want $3 million for it. Okay. How do I determine? So then I got to build let's say I got to build a business that will be worth $3 million. Okay. That's something I'd be interested in, is what does my business look like at a valuation of $3 million where somebody be.
Yeah. Yeah. So
did you hear my question?
Yeah. I think I got it. You were breaking up a little bit, but I think this is really where the U2 comes in, right? Your business. So what I recommend is start by taking this business health assessment. And like I mentioned, there are 8 key drivers there that really drive the health and value of your business. And the first one is financial performance, right? So what revenue what is your revenue and how good do you keep your books? So do you have them, are they professionally managed, right? If you just keep, receipts in a box, that's not going to look good to a buyer, right? So at the end, I'm going to step back, right? So you may say you want $3 million for your business, but your business is really only worth what somebody's willing to pay.
No, I want to, let me stop you there. My business is not worth $3 million. What I want to do is build a business that's worth $3 million in 3 years or 5 years. That's what I want. I want a blueprint of what my business needs to look like in order to get a check for $3 million.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that for you right here, Brad. But like I mentioned, the first thing you want to do is probably do the business health assessment. We're going to need to take a look at your growth potential, scalability. What's your revenue projections look like? How secure is your financials? Do you have recurring revenue? What's your cash flow look like? how satisfied are your customers. Those are the kind of things that we would look at.
Okay, so yeah, I guess if I came into your office, what I would say is, I'd like to put that question on your desk and say, and the question back, and I think the answer is yes, is can you give me a blueprint of what my business needs to look like in order for me to get what I want?
Yeah, we can definitely build a blueprint for that. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so maybe just kind of closing that conversation out is, yeah, so the U2 is really, defining how healthy your business the health of your business. And then part of U3 is, creating that plan. Phase 2 is creating the plan. How do we create a plan, and what do we need to do to actually get you to that value that you want? And then we implement that plan, right? So that's kind of how we would progress through that. Any other questions? All right, so I had a few here that I'll make sure I address because I hear them all the time. Is, when should I start, or how early should I start? I think I talked about this one a lot already. So start early. I start today. So that's the best advice I can give there. If you can't start today, start tomorrow. But the earlier you can start thinking about these things, the better. The next question I often get is, who do I need on my team, right? So what kind of people? We talked a little bit about team. So what I would say, depending on the strategy you follow, you need different people. But in general, I would say you need an M&A attorney, a business broker, especially if you're going to sell, a CPA, tax advisor kind of person, somebody specifically that has experience with business sales, business transitions. They need to know the tax implications of transitioning the business to a family member or selling the business outright. Financial advisor, somebody that can help you figure out, what am I going to do with my money once I get it? So, you hear about these lottery winners that get $500 million and it's gone in 5 years. So you sell your business for $1 million. How do you keep that $1 million and make it grow? And then, insurance folks are good people to have on your team. They can help mitigate risk. They can help put together, key man clauses. So again, if your partner in your business kind of all of a sudden falls ill, you can insure against that with a key man kind of insurance. So having an insurance advisor, M&A attorney, business broker, CPA, tax advisor with experience in selling business sales and transitions, financial advisor. So those are some of the key people I'd say you should have in your team. And then the third question I often get is, where can I go for more information? So I kind of brought this up earlier. So you can always reach out to me. I mean, I'd love to be a resource for you. I'd love to be a guide, helping you through these conversations, through these, thinking through these things. So I would love to be a resource for you. There's an organization called EPI, the Exit Planning Institute. They're a great organization, and they all do a lot of, they're the Exit Planning Institute. So they do a lot of work on exit planning, business transitions, business sales. So they've got a really good blog. So I would recommend checking out their blog if you want to learn more. And there's another organization called Business Enterprise Institute, so BEI. So EPI and BEI. So Exit Planning Institute and Business Enterprise Institute. So those are two really good organizations that also have, BEI also has a really good blog. So they do a lot, they put out a lot of information about succession planning, selling the businesses and stuff like that. So those are three questions I often get. I don't know if there was any others that came up as I started to talk through those.
I think oh, go ahead.
No, sir, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, let's, how can I find out about cost and stuff like that for, to hire you and have you help us?
Yeah, so so I guess that kind of moves into, how can I support you? My last slide. Really, I've got, this UCube succession strategy is a really great way to hire me to help you out. So we would start with this personal readiness assessment, And I offer that as a kind of a free discovery call, opening session. And then we can move into an actual conversation about helping you define your strategy. And then if you wanted to move into an actual helping you plan your strategy, I can help you with strategy planning. I can help you with the business growth, business valuation, helping you grow the value of your business. And then if you want to actually help implementing some of the things that we talk about to make your business healthier, to make it sellable or buyable, I can help you in those ways too.
Mark, there was two. Have you any thoughts on SCORE or SBA? Since the senior corps of retired executives, obviously they've been there, done that. Horror stories that obviously they may have from their transitions. And then also, does the local SBA here in Vegas offer some additional resources to transition those businesses? Have you found those useful?
I haven't worked with the SBA specifically, but I'm sure they do. There'd be a good place to start with. And SCORE, I've never worked with them. The only experience I've had with SCORE is just kind of, I know that they help businesses with startups. So, but I'm sure they help with the exit also. So yeah, there's local SCORE office here downtown. I actually met with them. And I think at least they used to be over in the Bank of America building, I think it was. I'm not sure if they're still there or not, but that's downtown here in Vegas, but there'd be a good resource. They have, free coaches, free mentors, so you can sign up with them and they can really help you out a lot.
Yeah, a lot of the business regulation, all that, right? The lawyers, the CPAs, the insurance, all that stuff really, it's all encompassing, and it's, like I said, overwhelming to that widow that may or may not want the business. So.
Yeah, right. I can imagine what would happen.
Or widower, yes.
Yeah. So I can imagine if my father passed away and my mother just got the business as part of inheritance, she wouldn't have not known what to do at all, right? There would have been chaos, right? The leadership team probably would have kept the business going for, maybe 6 months to a year, but eventually they would have had problems, right? They eventually would have fallen apart. So making sure that my father got what he could when he sold it, had a plan and a strategy and a plan that he was able to successfully execute, really took a lot of burden off my mother when he passed away. All right, so I see it's a little after 10, but I'll stick around for any other questions you got. Otherwise, that's about it. What I'll do after this, I'm going to take this recording. I will, after Zoom finishes doing what it does, I'll put it up on my website, and you guys will all get an email from me maybe in an hour or two with a link to that video, so you can go watch the video. And you can also, on that same page where the video is, if you scroll down, you'll see you should be able to download the actual presentation I just went through. So if you want to download that. And for registering, you all should have gotten a copy of my transition template, my smooth transition family business template. If you didn't get that, let me know. But I think it's a really good accompaniment to this conversation, because it really talks about things you should be thinking about, laying out a high-level plan. Maybe not all the tasks you need to do, not a project plan per se, but all the areas you should be thinking about documenting. When you're building a plan. So if you didn't get that template, let me know. I'll be happy to send it over to you.
Is that Mark? I didn't check if I got it, but is that something that we can share?
Yeah, sure. Good. I'll put it on the website also. So if you want to download it, you can download it again. Wonderful, folks. I appreciate you all coming. Again, like I said, it's the first challenge is getting people to register, and the second challenge is getting people to show up. So I really appreciate you all showing up. Stay in touch. Thank you, folks.
I think it'll be the testimonials that keep flowing it to bigger and bigger audiences, Mark. So yeah. Any kudos afterwards to your audience that we've already shared it with, right? All your contacts. So, and when's the next one, Mark?
So I'm getting ready to offer, I'll probably do this again at the beginning of the year, kind of when people are starting to think about the new year. I'll probably do it at the end of just maybe the end of December, beginning of January, when people are thinking about, okay, what am I going to do about for the next year for 2024? So I'll probably offer this same presentation then, but I'm thinking at the beginning of fourth quarter, I'll be putting together a new presentation on, Brad, this might be interesting to you, on a very specific part of the business health, your revenue model. So that's one of the thinking about. So I've got another one in the works about, it's called Hub and Spoke. So it's really about making sure your business can operate without you. So the one I'm working on for the beginning of fourth quarter is called the Automatic Customer. So keep an eye out for that. So I'll do another business owner briefing then. All right, thanks, folks. I'm going to sign off.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks.
Mark.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you all.